Millin here from TeslaTaxi.com.au, just making this video to demonstrate the self-driving in stop-and-go traffic. So we'll just start up the self-driving now and we'll check how long it takes in between interventions. So at the moment we're recording this in mid-August in 2023, Brisbane, Australia, and we've got here the current speed is 12 kilometres an hour, and the distance to the next exit or next intervention that we need to do is 4.4 kilometres. I think it's going to ask us to touch the steering wheel roughly every 2 minutes or every 1 kilometre, but I'll just do a couple of quick tests now that we're recording this to see exactly how this system performs. We are expecting FSD beta to arrive in Australia sometime in the next 6 months, hopefully. So we'll see when that gets closer if the amount of nag, which is when it asks you to touch the steering wheel, if that starts to decrease for known routes or known areas of travel where the car is comfortable with the driving environment. So as you can see there, it's just over a minute since we engaged the self-driving. In this particular case it's called autopilot, and we'll see how often we do actually have to touch the steering wheel. The distance up here to the next exit was 4.6 when we started this video, so we've only done about half a kilometre, and we've now done a minute and a half without the car nagging or requesting a touch of the steering wheel. So we'll see if it's every 2 minutes or every 1 kilometre, whichever comes first on this trip out of the city. My guess is that it will probably be what I just said, every 2 minutes or every 1 kilometre, whichever comes sooner. But we'll just test that today and see if we can get an accurate reading on how often the car does require you to confirm that you are still here paying attention. There is a camera up here that's watching my eyes, so obviously I'm still paying attention to what the car's doing. So if the car does the wrong thing, I can intervene, or if obviously I was using my phone or doing something that I'm not supposed to be doing while supervising the car, of course the car would detect that with this camera and put up the nag alert on the screen sooner. So we've just gone 2.5 minutes, almost 2.5 minutes, without it asking for us to touch the steering wheel. But we've only gone half a kilometre, so I could have been a bit wrong there with my estimation that it was going to be every 2 minutes. So we'll just see how this plays out and see when it does actually request me to touch the steering wheel. So that's almost 3 minutes now, and about 0.7 of a kilometre roughly. We'll check if that, yep, there we go, so it's 3 minutes almost exactly. So we'll do lap there. Actually, let's just start that again. So it's at 4 kilometres, and my guess is that if the traffic picks up and we get to do 1 kilometre before the clock strikes 3 minutes, it'll ask us to touch the steering wheel based on distance rather than time, but we'll just see how that actually progresses during this video. I'll maybe get one of my video editors to do a bit of a cut of this video to actually fast forward through the boring bits, but I'll just post this one raw today just to show people where it currently sits. If you've got 10 minutes to endure, then you can see how the car actually functions. So while we're waiting for any requests from the car, we'll just talk randomly about some other Tesla Taxi related news. We currently have cars available in Brisbane, Sydney and Melbourne that can be booked for Uber drivers. So that means you can rent a car for Uber from, depending on the age of the car, from around about $500 a week. And because it's an electric car, Uber do pay the Uber drivers around about 10% more for driving an electric car, as opposed to, for instance, a hybrid Camry, which is the other popular Uber car in Australia. So it can work out in the driver's favour to rent a Tesla for around $500 a week, because with an extra $200 to $300 pay from Uber each week, you're actually not effectively paying that much for the rental of the vehicle itself. So teslataxi.com.au and click on the Uber link if you'd like to apply for a quote in your city, if it's Brisbane, Sydney or Melbourne. We will be expanding to Adelaide and Canberra next year, providing the cars aren't fully autonomous by then, but for now we're just operating in Brisbane, Sydney and Melbourne with cars currently available for rent for Uber. So that's gone 0.6 of a kilometre and 2 minutes without requesting any assistance or notification from us. And my guess is that it's going to get again to 3 minutes and then put up the alert saying that we need to touch the steering wheel. Obviously with this heavy traffic is pretty much the ideal time as far as the Tesla software is concerned to demonstrate how the car can manage the driving tasks without any requirement of the driver to do anything other than obviously supervise and make sure that they're paying attention in case they do need to intervene. So we're getting close to the 3 minute mark now, and we're getting relatively close to 1 kilometre, so these could actually coincide and sort of happen at about the same time. So teslataxi.com.au if you're interested in renting a Tesla for Uber, or even if you just want to rent a Tesla for personal use and drive Uber or ride hail. Yep, there we go. So I'll touch that again and restart that. So we're at 3.2 kilometres, restarting the timer now. The other information that's relevant to people driving these cars for profit is the charging information. So obviously you can flick between your different stats here. Charging information, if you can read that there, says that we're using 165 watt hours per kilometre, which basically means 6 kilowatt hours per 100 kilometres. So the conversion on that, 16 kilowatt hours per 100 kilometres. The conversion on that on 30 cents per kilowatt hour at home is roughly $4 per 100 kilometres. So you can compare that to roughly $12 for a hybrid Camry on fuel, or roughly $20 to $25 for a regular petrol-powered car. So the economics of driving one of these cars long distance is very good if you are doing the bulk of your charging overnight at home. If you plug into a home socket on a 10 or 15 amp, you're getting around about 200 kilometres per night, or if you install a 32 amp socket at home, usually an electrician will charge you $200 to $300 to do that, and the 32 amp sockets will charge Teslas at roughly 400 kilometres in under 8 hours, which means that you'll always get a full charge. So there we go, that's asking for input there after half a kilometre and 1.5 minutes. Could be because the flow of traffic changed a little bit there, so we'll just start that again at 2.4 kilometres up here. So my guess is that because the average speed was up a little bit, maybe it's dropped that 3 minutes down to 1.5 minutes as the time-based requirement to let the car know that you're paying attention. But there's no published information from Tesla on how they're actually monitoring that, so they could be basically just using a risk assessment based on the flow of traffic or any number of variables to determine how often the car needs you to show the car that you're still paying attention. So we're currently at 1.9. I think we reset it at 2.2, but you can replay the video to double check, and that's another half kilometre on that particular run. So 1.6 kilometres was the reset point. So based on those last two, I'm guessing that when this gets down to 1.1, or when this gets to a minute or so, it's going to ask us again with the notification here to touch the steering wheel. I might make this the last demonstration for this run because the traffic is a bit all over the place, so it's not a really scientific mark of what the car is doing, but should give us a bit of an idea for future reference if we repeat this test in a month and see if the time between steering wheel touches changes dramatically. So that's half a kilometre now and 45 seconds, and it's just asked again, so yeah, that's less than a minute and half a kilometre. I did try this on the way to work today on the same road in the other direction obviously, and when I did that this morning, the time between steering wheel touches was always exactly a kilometre, or between 900 metres and a kilometre, and that was without much traffic at all, so that was an average speed of 100 kilometres an hour. So that gives you a bit of an indication as to the frequency that you need to touch the steering wheel based on the traffic flow and the type of road that you're on. Obviously on suburban streets it's quite different. If the street has a lot of windy bends in it, it does ask you to touch the steering wheel much more often than a very simple road like this one on the freeway here. Millin from TeslaTaxi.com.au if you'd like to make any inquiries about renting Teslas in Australia. Thank you.